Warhammer 40,000 Conquest is played over a number of rounds. Each round consists of 4 phases: the deploy phase, the command phase, the combat phase, and the headquarters phase. In the deploy phase, each player is able to deploy cards from his hand to prepare for the impending conflict. To deploy a card, players must spend a number of resources equal to the card's cost. Deployment turns alternate between the players until both players decide to pass. Since player 1 has initiative, he decides to deploy a shooter mob to the 4th planet Osus 4. Any card being deployed must be paid for by paying its resource cost. Player 1 pays 1 resource and places the shooter mob army next to the planet. Deployment turns alternate between the players, and it is now player 2's turn. He spends 1 resource and deploys a Fortress Monastery. The Fortress Monastery is a support card and is not deployed to a planet, but is instead deployed into player 2's headquarters. Player 1 now deploys a Sniveling Grot, which has a deployment cost of 0 to the 3rd planet Ferrin. Player 2 then deploys a 10th Company Scout to the 3rd planet Ferrin. Normally this would cost 1 resource. However, the interrupt effect of the Fortress Monastery reads, when you deploy a Space Marines unit, exhaust this support to reduce that unit's cost by 1. Exhausting a card rotates it 90 degrees to show that the card has been used. Player 2 is now able to deploy his 10th Company Scout for free. Player 1 next spends 1 resource and deploys a Gothboy's army to the 1st planet Balus. Player 2 then pays 6 resources and deploys his Ultramarines Dreadnought to Balus. Player 1 decides to pay 3 resources to deploy his Weird Boy Maniac to Balus. The Weird Boy Maniac has a reaction that reads, after this unit enters play, deal 1 damage to each other unit at this planet. Player 1 decides to trigger this ability, and 1 damage is placed on the Gothboys, and 1 damage is placed on Player 2's Ultramarines Dreadnought. Player 2 is now forced to pass, as he has no resources to pay for additional deployments. Player 1 decides to deploy a Sniveling Grot, which has a deployment cost of 0 to Balus. Since Player 2 was forced to pass, Player 1 may take another deployment turn, but decides to pass, keeping 2 unspent resources. When both players have passed, the deploy phase is complete and play moves to the command phase.